Welcome to HD Rare Coins, your ultimate source for rare coins, fascinating history, and the thrill of discovery. From legendary pennies to hidden gems, we explore the world of numismatics one amazing coin at a time.
The year was 1979. Gasoline was scarce, inflation was biting, and the Cold War still hung over every conversation like a distant thunderstorm. America was in flux, changing its technology, its fashion, its politics. Amidst this whirlwind, the U.S. Mint made a decision that would both confuse and fascinate the nation: the release of the Susan B. Anthony dollar coin. It was a dollar smaller than ever before, a coin many mistook for a quarter, a piece that defied expectations and, ultimately, carved a place in numismatic history. The Susan B. Anthony dollar was not just a coin, it was a statement. For the first time, a woman other than Lady Liberty would appear on U.S. currency. Susan B. Anthony, the fierce and tireless advocate for women's suffrage, was chosen to represent progress, equality, and the power of civic voice. Her stern profile, designed by chief engraver Frank Gasparo, stared leftward with unflinching resolve. Surrounding her were 13 stars and the word Liberty. The year 1979 sat boldly below, a timestamp for the beginning of a short-lived but legendary coinage. On the reverse, an eagle landing on the moon, clutching an olive branch, mirrored the Eisenhower dollar's Apollo 11 tribute. It was symbolic, patriotic, and ambitious. But while the Eisenhower dollar was large and heavy, the new Anthony dollar was the size of a quarter, struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition. It felt modern. It felt practical. But it also caused confusion. People avoided using them. Vending machines rejected them. And yet, collectors began whispering. There were variations. Differences in design. In 1979 alone, two major varieties were born: the wide rim and the narrow rim. The wide rim, sometimes called the near date, because of how close the numbers came to the rim of the coin, was far scarcer than its counterpart. Casual spenders never noticed, but collectors did. And in high grades, especially MS-66 or better, the 1979 P wide rim Susan B. Anthony dollar could command hundreds of dollars. It was an error born not of malice, but of adjustment, a minor die change that became a legendary distinction. The Philadelphia Mint bore no mint mark, while the Denver and San Francisco coins carried their usual D and S. But the real treasure in 1979 lay in the proof coins, especially the 1979 S Type 1 and Type 2 varieties. Type 1 had a blob-like S, while Type 2 featured a sharper, clearer mint mark. The Type 2 was much scarcer, and when a collector stumbled upon one nestled among a proof set, the excitement was palpable. In mint rolls, in sealed sets, and overlooked jars of change, the Susan B. Anthony dollar waited. Misunderstood, underused, but not unloved, collectors began to appreciate what the public missed: the difficulty of finding flawless surfaces, the challenge of locating full-strike details, the stunning eye appeal of a coin with deep, original luster, and perhaps more than anything, the symbolism. Susan B. Anthony, so long ignored by history, finally had a voice, even if it rang out from the bottom of a coin jar. Auction houses began to report growing demand. Heritage, Stack's Bowers, eBay, and great collections all saw bids climb for high-grade specimens. Prices began to creep upward. And the rarest of the 1979 issues? They soared. A 1979 P wide rim in MS-67? Nearly $1,500. A 1979 S Type 2 proof in PR-70 DCM? Over $2,000. And those were just the recorded sales. Private deals whispered of even higher numbers. What began as a misunderstood experiment had become a collector's dream. And it only took a few decades. Today, the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar is more than a coin. It's a lesson. In change, in resistance, in eventual recognition. A piece once mocked for its size and design now sits proudly in albums, in slabs, in the hands of those who understand. And as you hold one, maybe one pulled from circulation or one purchased at a show, you realize it was never just a dollar. It was always something more. A treasure waiting to be seen. But the tale of the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar doesn't end in the collector's case or the auction hall. It continues in the stories of those who stumbled upon it unknowingly. In Florida, a young girl named Tessa received one as change at a local thrift store. She kept it because she thought the woman on it looked brave. Years later, she would learn not only who Susan B. Anthony was, but also the value of the specific 1979 P wide rim coin she had casually tossed into her jewelry box. It graded MS-66, and it funded her college semester. Elsewhere, in a dusty old drawer in a Pennsylvania farmhouse, an elderly man named Carl found a forgotten proof set. It had been a gift from his father, untouched for decades. Inside, gleaming with untouched beauty, said a 1979 as Type 2 proof, a perfect, deep cameo coin. He submitted it for grading, and when the PR70 DCM label returned, so did the memories. That one coin brought in more than $2,500 at auction and became the centerpiece of a story he passed on to his grandchildren. This coin, misunderstood in 1979, misunderstood in pockets and vending machines, now speaks clearly to a new generation. It tells of missed potential, overlooked brilliance, and quiet triumph. The 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar may never have become the everyday currency its creators envisioned, but in the world of numismatics, it became something far rarer, an underdog turned icon. Collectors now hunt it with devotion. They scour rolls for signs of rim variety. They search proof sets for the telltale sharpness of a Type 2 mint mark. They submit, grade, trade, and sometimes simply admire. Because some coins aren't just about metal. They're about meaning. And the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar means more than most ever gave it credit for. And this is only the beginning. As we delve deeper, we uncover stories of coins that traveled farther than their face value could ever carry them. In a Nevada pawn shop, a $1,979 sat unnoticed in a display case for over a decade. One day, a traveling collector spotted the familiar glint and, out of habit, asked to examine it. A magnifier revealed it was a wide rim, uncirculated, with full luster and strong strike. He purchased it for $2. That coin later auctioned for $950. In Oklahoma, a retired postmaster named Denise kept a box of coins her husband had hoarded since his days as a bank teller. One rainy afternoon, she opened it for the first time in 20 years. Inside was a roll marked $1 SBA 79 proof. Every coin was mirror-like, untouched. She submitted them to PCGS. 5 of them returned as PR70 DCM Type 2s. Her story made it into the local newspaper. The coins? They became legends. These tales fuel the chase. They keep alive the spark that first drew collectors into the fold. The 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar isn't just a relic. It's a vessel of history, hope, and sometimes unexpected prosperity. And for every known variety and registered high grade, there are still coins out there, waiting, watching, quietly residing in piggy banks and drawers and forgotten boxes. The hunt continues. And in every coin show, every online auction, every numismatic newsletter, the chatter grows. Forums light up with photos. Is this the wide rim? Does this proof look like a Type 2? New collectors post images, veterans respond with advice, and a digital camaraderie forms around this single coin. It brings people together, some searching for profit, others for nostalgia, and still more for the thrill of the find. Museums have begun to feature the Susan B. Anthony dollar in exhibits about modern currency. Educators use it in lessons about civil rights, tying Susan B. Anthony's legacy to a tangible artifact of progress. What was once dismissed as a flawed experiment now serves as a bridge between generations, a symbol not only of a cause but of change itself. And it continues to teach, to inspire, to reward. The Anthony dollar, now over 4 decades old, has outlived its critics. It has grown into its purpose, not as a coin of convenience, but as one of conversation. And every time someone spots it in change, every time a child asks, "Who is this lady?" its mission is fulfilled anew. There is still so much more to uncover. The year was 2000. The dawn of a new millennium had arrived, and with it came the hope of a transformed future, a time that promised innovation, renewed optimism, and a fresh start. The United States Mint had a vision for a coin that would mark this turn of the century, a piece that would usher in a new era of American currency. This coin was not just another dollar, it was the Sacagawea golden dollar, and among its various issues, one would rise to legendary status, the 2000p. A coin minted in Philadelphia that would become a central character in one of numismatics' most compelling stories. From the moment the idea of a new dollar coin was conceived, the Mint sought to break tradition while honoring the rich heritage of the nation. They wanted a coin that was distinct in appearance, symbolic in design, and practical in usage. The result was stunning. A smooth golden hue achieved through a manganese brass-clad composition that set it apart visually from any other U.S. coin in circulation. At its heart was the face of Sacagawea, the Lemhi Shoshone woman who, with her infant son Jean-Baptiste on her back, helped guide the Lewis and Clark expedition through the untamed American frontier. Her image, designed by sculptor Glenna Goodacker, captured both serenity and strength, motherhood and leadership. The reverse featured an eagle in flight, wings spread wide, soaring above the earth with 17 stars representing the states in the Union at the time of the expedition. The overall aesthetic of the coin was a balance of elegance and tribute, and it quickly gained attention from collectors, historians, and the public alike. But while the intent was noble and the artistry commendable, the coin's journey was just beginning, and it would not be a smooth flight. The Mint launched an ambitious campaign to introduce the new dollar to the public. From distributing them as change at national retailers like Walmart, to integrating them into postage stamp packages and vending machines, they tried everything to ensure the golden dollar would be embraced by the public. But old habits die hard. People simply preferred paper dollars. They confused the new coin with quarters due to its similar size. Circulation stalled. And yet, in the background, something remarkable was unfolding. In Philadelphia, as the Mint struck millions of 2,000p Sacagawea dollars, a small but critical anomaly occurred. Some coins were struck using a reverse die mint for the Washington quarter. The resulting hybrid, the now infamous 2,000p Cheerios dollar, would later rock the world of collectors. These coins, placed in Cheerios boxes as a promotional giveaway, were initially thought to be regular specimens. But years later, eagle-eyed numismatists noticed a difference in the eagle's tail feathers. They were sharper, more detailed, a prototype reverse never used in mass production. Suddenly, these simple serial prizes were worth thousands. Collectors raced to authenticate their finds. Coins that once sat in breakfast bowls or were stashed away in childhood keepsake boxes were now fetching staggering prices. One such 2,000p Cheerios dollar sold for over $10,000. Another reached $14,000 at auction. A rare treasure, hidden in plain sight, had become a numismatic holy grail, and that was just one of many stories tied to this incredible coin. For while the Cheerios dollar captured headlines, the standard 2,000p also garnered significant attention. Minted in vast numbers, over 767 million pieces, the coin was intended for circulation, yet millions were hoarded by collectors and curious Americans alike. Those preserved in pristine condition, especially in MS-67 or higher, began commanding premiums. The deeper one digs into the story of the 2,000p Sacagawea dollar, the more fascinating it becomes. There are tales of coins discovered sealed in government packaging, untouched since their issue, now grading at near-perfect levels. There are stories of lucky finds in circulation decades later, coins glinting golden in a sea of silver and copper. There are legends of rare die errors, off-center strikes, and mule coins, like the astounding Sacagawea/State Quarter Mule, a bizarre fusion of two coins that shocked the numismatic community, and all the while, the legacy of Sacagawea herself loomed over it all, a woman of courage and wisdom, now forever immortalized in metal. The 2,000p coin, with its rich gold color and storied history, became more than just money. It became a portal into a forgotten world, a chapter of American spirit told through alloy and art. As the years passed, interest in the coin only grew. Young collectors learned about its quirks and mysteries. Seasoned numismatists debated grading populations and market value. Exhibitions displayed the Cheerios dollars under glass, while auctioneers spoke excitedly about upcoming sales. It wasn't just about rarity anymore. It was about the thrill of the hunt, and what of the value? Today, the 2,000p Sacagawea dollar in uncirculated condition may sell for modest amounts, perhaps a few dollars over face value. But in high grades, MS-68, MS-69, the price can rise dramatically. And for the Cheerios dollars or confirmed mule errors, the sky is the limit. Tens of thousands of dollars. A humble coin transformed by circumstance, mistake, and magic. So, the next time you see a golden glint in your change, take a closer look. You might be holding a piece of history, a symbol of discovery, a coin that tells the story of a millennium, a nation, and a young woman who helped shape it all. And this, dear viewers, is only the beginning of the golden tale. The hunt continues, and beyond the hunt lies the human side of the coin. Stories of discovery, surprise, and sometimes even life-changing fortune. In Michigan, a retired schoolteacher named Martha found a pristine 2,000p Cheerios dollar taped to a scrapbook page from her daughter's school project. The coin had never been removed, never touched. Decades after the cereal box promotion, she sent it for grading. It came back as MS-68 and sold for over $9,500. That single coin helped fund her granddaughter's tuition. In California, a young collector named Tyler found a Sacagawea dollar at a flea market. He paid $1 for it, intrigued by its condition. Later, upon inspecting the tail feathers and consulting online coin forums, he suspected it might be the Cheerios variant. A local dealer confirmed it. It graded MS-67 and sold for more than $11,000. Tyler, just 16, reinvested the proceeds into starting his own small coin shop online. There are other tales of bank tellers saving interesting coins from deposit boxes, of travelers discovering them in foreign currency exchanges, and even of a woman who found a near-perfect example lodged under the passenger seat of a used car she had just bought. These aren't just stories. They are moments in which the ordinary became extraordinary. And at the heart of every tale was the 2000-piece Sacagawea dollar, quietly shining its way through modern American history. It speaks volumes that a coin meant to represent accessibility and progress ended up becoming a beacon for collectors and dreamers. Sacagawea, once a figure of the past, was revived through the modern lens of collecting. And with each new find, the legend continues to grow. The year was 1985, and the United States was in the midst of a cultural and economic transformation. The Cold War loomed but was beginning to thaw. Music icons like Madonna and Michael Jackson dominated airwaves, and personal computers were starting to redefine the way Americans worked and lived. It was a time of transition, of optimism, of bold statements. Amidst all of this, quietly slipping from the presses of the U.S. Mint, came a coin that most people overlooked, a 50-cent piece bearing the face of a fallen president, a symbol of a changing nation, and for some collectors, a sleeping treasure. The 1985 Kennedy half-dollar. Born in the aftermath of tragedy, the Kennedy half-dollar had been first struck in 1964, just months after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Its debut was not just a numismatic release, it was a national gesture of mourning, reverence, and remembrance. Americans hoarded it in memory of a young president whose idealism and charisma had left an indelible mark. But by 1985, over 2 decades later, the coin had faded from everyday use. The public had turned to dollar bills and quarters for daily transactions. The half-dollar, once circulated widely, had become a ghost in the cash register, and yet the coin was still being minted. In that year, the Philadelphia and Denver Mint struck millions of 1985 Kennedy half-dollars, and the San Francisco Mint continued to produce proof versions for collectors. To the casual observer, there was little reason to notice. But to the dedicated numismatist, the 1985 coin offered subtle distinctions, hidden stories, and a quiet allure. On the obverse, Kennedy's profile faced left, designed by Gilroy Roberts, the former chief engraver of the U.S. Mint. His hair was rendered with subtle realism, his expression calm and composed, as if looking beyond time itself. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's heraldic eagle clutched arrows and an olive branch, a motif reminiscent of the Great Seal of the United States. Though struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition rather than the original 90% silver of the 1964 version, the 1985 issue still held the same dimensions, weight, and patriotic symbolism. The lack of silver, and the general lack of circulation use, led many to dismiss the coin. But what many didn't realize was that quality examples, high-grade uncirculated coins, and especially proofs could be surprisingly elusive. The Denver Mint struck over 15 million coins, and Philadelphia nearly 18 million. But survival in pristine condition was another matter altogether. The hunt for high-grade 1985 half-dollars became a quiet obsession for specialists. Coins graded MS-66 or higher were not common. In fact, PCGS population reports showed just a modest number in the top grades, making them desirable targets for registry-set collectors. And then there were the proofs. The San Francisco Mint issued a stunning 1985 as proof, deep mirror fields, frosted devices, and in ultra-high grades like PR70 DCM, these coins sparkled like jewels. Their elegance was undeniable, and for some collectors, the 1985 proof coin was a hidden gem in an otherwise overlooked year. But value wasn't the only factor driving interest. It was the stories behind the coins. A father who gifted his son a roll of 1985 halves on his 10th birthday. A coin dealer who discovered an MS-67 sitting quietly in a bulk bag of clad coins. A young girl who found a proof coin in her grandfather's old drawer, still in its original mint packaging, and later learned it was worth hundreds. These weren't just monetary discoveries, they were personal treasures, emotional echoes from a time long past. And perhaps that's what the 1985 Kennedy half-dollar truly represents, a bridge between eras. A coin born from tragedy, surviving through apathy, and now cherished by those who see beyond its common face value. It was a coin never meant to be rare, yet has moments of unexpected scarcity. A piece of metal, struck by machines, yet infused with memory, sentiment, and history. As we peel back the layers, we begin to understand that the real value of the 1985 half-dollar isn't just in its grade or auction price. It's in what it represents: the resilience of a nation, the lasting impact of a leader, the way history embeds itself in even the most ordinary objects. And so, the next time you come across a 1985 Kennedy half-dollar, whether in a forgotten drawer, a bankroll, or a dealer's bin, pause for a moment. Look closely. You might just be holding a silent chapter of America's story, waiting to be rediscovered. And that's just the beginning of what makes this coin so captivating. Because even after all these years, its story continues to unfold. In coin shops across the country, sharp-eyed collectors began to notice something. While millions of 1985 Kennedy half-dollars had been struck, very few retained the luster and clean surfaces that defined true mint state quality. Many had been carelessly handled or poorly stored, bearing bag marks, scuffs, or hazing that detracted from their appeal. Those few examples that had been preserved, often tucked into mint sets or discovered in untouched rolls, took on a special significance. They became the target of quiet bidding wars, whispered trades, and late-night online auctions. A Florida collector named James stumbled across a sealed roll of 1985 D. Kennedy has at a local estate sale. The plastic wrap had yellowed with age, and most buyers ignored it. James, however, had a hunch. He bought it for $5. When he opened it later that evening, he was astonished. Several of the coins were brilliant, with razor-sharp strikes and minimal contact marks. He submitted the best of them to PCGS. One came back MS-67, the highest grade then recorded for a Denver-minted 1985. Weeks later, it sold for over $900. Elsewhere, a woman in Nevada named Lorraine inherited a shoebox of coins from her late uncle, a retired bank teller. She almost gave them away, but a friend suggested she take a closer look. Buried beneath bicentennial quarters and Eisenhower dollars was a single 1985 S. Kennedy half-dollar, encased in a velvet-lined government-issued display box. Its mirrored surfaces reflected like glass. After grading, it returned as PR-70 DCM. That one coin helped cover her son's first semester of college. These are not isolated tales. Across America, stories like these play out every year, moments when ordinary people discover that what they held was extraordinary all along. And with the 1985 Kennedy half-dollar, those moments continue to multiply. Auction houses have begun to take notice. Heritage Auctions listed a pristine MS-67 1985 P specimen that fetched more than 10 times its estimated value. Great Collections regularly features high-grade examples, and eBay remains a hotbed for unsearched mint sets and dealer lots that could hold hidden gems. Collectors comb through these listings, eyes trained to spot faint doubling, off-center strikes, or frosted cameo contrasts on proof coins. And while monetary value plays a role, there's something deeper at work. The Kennedy half-dollar, especially one from an often overlooked year like 1985, represents continuity. It's a reminder that even when change is subtle, it carries weight. That a coin not spent can still carry meaning. That a nation's history is not only written in books, but also struck in metal, passed from hand to hand,